I was already dressed when the call came in. Gray tailored suit, fresh blowout, heels I had no business wearing on crack city sidewalks. I checked the time twice, my heart already thudding with anticipation for the ceremony. City Hall was just 10 minutes away. But my hand froze halfway to my purse when my phone buzzed. Marcus. My fiancé. My partner of 3 years. The man who'd practiced my campaign speeches with me. Who'd sworn he wanted to grow old watching me run things. I smiled, expecting one last, "You've got this, baby," before I walked into the biggest moment of my career. Instead I heard, "Karina, I can't do this." I thought maybe I'd misheard him. "What?" "I can't," he said again, voice hollow. "I can't marry you." The air went still. My pulse skipped, then slammed. "What the hell are you talking about?" But he didn't answer. Just a sharp exhale, like he was bracing himself. "I'm sorry. I can't be part of this anymore." And then the line went dead. At first, I didn't move. The phone stayed pressed to my ear, long after the call had ended. Then the buzzing started again, this time from my group chat. "Where are you?" "Everyone's seated." "We're at City Hall." My cousin Adriana sent a selfie. Her kids in matching dresses, grinning under a city flag. I couldn't breathe. Not properly. My chest felt like it had been kicked in. My legs moved without me telling them to. I left my apartment like a ghost, floated down the steps, somehow got into a cab. The driver asked if I was okay. I nodded. I don't think I blinked the whole ride. When I arrived at City Hall, my family was already there. My mother in her church best blue dress, holding a Tupperware of pastelitos she swore she wouldn't bring. My father in his stiff suit, the one he wore to every graduation. My tios and cousins, pressed into the wooden pews, buzzing with pride and noise. Until they saw me. I must have looked wrong. My face, my body language, something tipped them off. I didn't make it halfway down the hall before I stopped cold. "He left," I said, barely audible. "What?" My mother clutched her chest. "Marcus," I whispered. "He ended it. This morning." My mother made a strange broken sound and dropped the Tupperware. Pastelitos spilled across the tile. My father didn't move, didn't even blink. He just stared at me like I was a problem he didn't know how to solve. I stood there, frozen. This was supposed to be my day, my moment. Junior City Councilwoman Karina Torres, the first in our family. The banner still hung behind the judge's bench. I turned to Adriana. Can you tell them?" "I can't." She was already crying. I stumbled into a side room and locked the door. My hands were shaking too hard to remove my heels, so I just sat on the floor in them. Gray fabric wrinkling beneath me. That's when my phone buzzed again. Reina. My aunt. My mother's estranged sister who hadn't been to a family event in over a decade. Her name was a surprise in itself. "I heard," she said, not unkindly. "Come stay at the marina." "What?" "I've got a cottage," she said. "It's out of the way. Quiet. No press. No pity." Why are you?" "Because you need somewhere to fall apart," she said. "And City Hall isn't it." I said nothing. "I'll leave the light on." And just like that I had somewhere to go. I arrived by train the next afternoon, still in the same gray suit. It was wrinkled now, the jacket limp and the blouse smeared with faint makeup I didn't remember crying off. I didn't bring much. Just a carry-on suitcase, a charger, and a bag with my campaign folders I hadn't had the nerve to throw away. The platform was nearly empty.
No announcements.
Just salt in the air and a low, distant sound of seagulls. The town was smaller than I remembered from childhood visits. Or maybe I had just gotten bigger, louder, more citified. I felt like a billboard in a library. Reina was waiting just past the turnstile, leaning against a pickup truck the color of driftwood. Her dark hair was streaked with silver now, tied in a loose knot. She wore a canvas jacket with the sleeves rolled, like she'd been fixing something 5 minutes ago, and never got around to stopping. "Karina," she said with a short nod.
No who.
"You look like hell," she said, not unkindly. "Thanks." She opened the passenger door and motioned me in. I climbed in without asking where we were going. The drive from the station curved past rows of clapboard houses and boats on trailers. Reina didn't talk. Neither did I. The silence was fine, heavy but fine. We passed what I assumed was her house. A one-story place tucked behind a dune. Front porch covered in pots and rope. I figured she'd pull in. But she didn't. Instead, she kept driving, winding down toward the waterline, where the road turned gravel and the marina opened wide in front of us. We passed rusted fuel pumps and a half-sunk fishing boat. At the edge of the lot sat an old building, long, squat, and built from weathered planks the color of sea ash. A faded sign above the door read, "McAllen Boat Works." She parked. "This," Raina said, "is yours for now." I blinked. "I thought I'd be staying at your place." "Nope," she said, grabbing the keys from the ignition. "You need space." She pushed open the heavy door. The air inside hit me like an old memory, sawdust, varnish, and something briny and metallic, like the scent of deep water. There was a workbench pushed against the far wall, and a cot folded up beneath a window that didn't quite close. Dust caught the sunlight in lazy drifts. "I know it's rough," Raina said, "but it's private. Out-of-town gossip range. And no one's gonna knock here unless they're looking for bait or a lost rudder." I turned slowly in the space. It was empty, almost sad, but it was the first place in 24 hours that didn't feel like it might collapse under me. "It's fine," I said. She handed me the keys. "Fix what you want. Or don't. I'll bring food tomorrow." And just like that she left. I stood alone in the silence, hands still gripping the keys, breathing in the scent of old ambition and long-gone purpose. And for some reason I didn't feel lost. Not exactly. The first few days passed like fog. I slept late and woke up disoriented, unsure what day it was or if I cared. My phone stayed off. Raina dropped off food every other morning. Coffee in an old thermos, a bag of groceries, and sometimes a sandwich wrapped in wax paper with a single word scrawled on it: "Eat." We didn't talk much. She didn't ask questions and I didn't offer answers. The cot creaked with every breath I took, and I couldn't figure out how to keep the window from rattling in the wind. I started cleaning just to fill time. Sweeping out the sawdust. Wiping down the windows. Rearranging the old jars of screws and fittings. I found half a dozen toolboxes filled with rusted wrenches, chisels, even a plane so worn I couldn't tell if it had been used for decades or forgotten altogether. One afternoon, I walked to the nearest grocery store. A place called Harlow's with creaky floors and a bell that rang when you entered. I must have looked like a walking contradiction. Wrinkled blazer, paint-splattered sneakers, hair tied up with a rubber band I'd found on the floor. As I paid for a bag of apples and crackers, the cashier tilted her head. "You Raina's niece?" I hesitated. "I guess." She smiled, curious but not unkind. "The politician one." "Thought so. Word gets around." I gave a tight nod. "I'm not really in politics anymore." She chuckled. "Nobody's ever not in politics around here. You just stop shaking hands for a while." On the walk back, 2 older men on a bench waved at me. "You staying down at the marina?" One of them asked. "Yeah. Used to be Marla's space back when she still built them." I stopped. "Built what?" "Boats," he said like it was obvious. "Fast ones. Real beauties. Raced up and down this coast in the 80s. She vanished after the hurricane. Rumor is she lives out near Breakers Point now. Built her own house too." "Marla McAllen?" I asked, surprised I remembered the faded sign. The other man nodded. "Yep. Best damn boat builder this side of New England. Shame she never came back to the yard." Back at the shack, the name stuck in my head. I started looking around differently. Not just sweeping anymore, examining. I noticed a faded blueprint tacked behind a tool rack. Scribbled measurements in pencil on the wall. And near the back, propped against a pile of wood, I found it. An old rudder. It was unfinished. Stained with oil and speckled with old varnish, but the shape was unmistakable, elegant and curved, like someone had loved it once. Picked it up. It was heavier than I expected, solid and quiet in my hands. And for some reason I couldn't explain, I felt steady. Like I was holding something that mattered. I didn't know anything about boats. I'd never built so much as a shelf. But suddenly, I wanted to know everything about Marla McAllen. I waited 2 more days before I asked Raina about Marla. It was early, just past sunrise, and she'd come by with fresh bread and a weathered thermos full of coffee. We sat on overturned crates outside the marina office, the morning light turning the water gold. "Do you know her?" I asked, watching her carefully. Raina didn't look up. Marla. Yeah, the builder. People say she still lives out on the coast. She nodded slowly. Glass and timber place past Breaker's Point. Built the whole thing herself. Driftwood and steel. I want to meet her. That made Raina pause. She sipped her coffee, then finally said, she doesn't like people. I tried to smile. Neither do I lately. She's not chatty. Not soft. I'm not asking her to be. She's the best there is. And she knows it. But she won't hand it over easy. I'm not looking for easy, I said. I'm looking for, I don't know, a reason to get up in the morning. Raina gave me a long, quiet look. Then she handed me the keys to her truck. Don't be a dumbass, she said. Bring her something useful. Not questions. It took an hour to find the house. The road out to Breaker's Point narrowed until it was barely more than gravel and sea grass. Then the trees opened up and there it was. A house made of long, clean lines and huge windows. It looked like it had grown from the cliff itself. Boats, or pieces of them, lay stacked along the perimeter. A hull flipped over on blocks, ribs of cedar sun-bleached and hollow. I didn't have a plan. I brought the rudder. Marla opened the door after 2 knocks. She was in her late 60s, maybe older, wiry with sun-streaked hair pulled into a low braid. Her arms were bare, lined with muscle and old scars. She squinted at me like she was checking for rot. You're Raina's niece. Karina. She looked down at the rudder I was holding. I think it was yours, I said. It was in the marina office. Marla studied it like she could read the wood. Then she stepped back and opened the door wider. I don't do tourists. And I don't teach people who want to impress their friends. I stepped inside, heart pounding. I'm not here to impress anyone. I just need to learn how to hold something together. That made her go still. She pointed to a work table. Sanding blocks there. Pine shavings go in the bin. Sweep when you're done. That was it.
No welcome.
No offer of tea. But I'd been given a place to stand. And in that silence, under the smell of cedar and salt, I felt something shift. Like the grain of wood finding its direction. I showed up the next morning before Marla opened the door. The sky was still pink, the air sharp with sea mist. I didn't knock. I just waited on the steps with a paper bag of breakfast rolls from the corner shop, and a half-hearted joke in my head that I never said out loud. When she let me in, she just jerked her chin toward the broom in the corner. That became the rhythm. Sweep first. Then sand. Then stack scrap pieces and scrub old brushes and label tool drawers with fading Sharpie ink. I didn't touch a chisel or clamp for 2 full weeks. My fingers blistered from the sanding, and I learned quickly not to complain. You're not here to finish fast, she said once when I tried to rush through a dull patch of siding. You're here to get it right. First I felt ridiculous. I didn't know the difference between mahogany and maple, between bow and stern. Every time I picked up a piece of wood I expected it to break. But slowly I stopped flinching. Marla never praised me, but she stopped correcting my grip as much. One afternoon she watched me trace the edge of an oar blade I'd been shaping. Crooked and chipped, but mine. Still wants to be a spoon, she said. I looked up. What? She pointed at the warped curve. You're forcing it against the grain. Listen to it. It sounded insane. But that night I found myself sitting on the floor of the marina office, tracing the ridges in the rudder I'd found weeks ago. Letting my hands learn the wood. Not just force it. The office had changed too. I'd patched the leak near the window and pried open the stubborn skylight. Raina had dropped off a battered armchair and a roll of insulation. Saying nothing, just placing it near the door with a shrug. I fixed the cracked pane of glass myself. Bought a little box of sandpaper and started cleaning up the old blueprint on the wall, piece by piece. By the end of the month, I started sketching. Nothing dramatic, just pencil lines on butcher paper, rough outlines of a hull. I didn't even know if it was buildable, but it was real. I taped the first drawing to the wall near my cot, right above the shelf where I kept my tools, and a folded note Raina had left that said, "Don't overthink. Start cutting." At Marla's shop, she handed me a block of red cedar one morning and said, "You're going to plane it. Then shape a bow rib. One mistake and it snaps. Start over if it does." I nodded, heart racing. She raised an eyebrow. Why are you really doing this? I looked at the wood. Because I need to make something that isn't fake. She said nothing. Just walked away. But I swear, I saw her smile, just barely before she turned. And in the quiet rhythm of sanding, measuring, cutting and correcting, I realized I wasn't just building a boat. I was building my way back to myself. It was early when he showed up. Fog still hung low over the docks, the air cool and damp. I was bent over a strip of cedar, sketching out lines for a bulkhead brace, when I saw the silhouette, tall, familiar, out of place. Marcus. He stood near the edge of the marina office like someone unsure if he was allowed to be there. The same navy coat he used to wear in the city, hair too neat for a place that smelled like salt and varnish. My chest tightened but I didn't move. Karina, he said, voice soft. Can we talk? I stood slowly, wiping my hands on a rag. Talk or explain? He hesitated. Both. I didn't invite him in. He stepped closer anyway. I've been thinking about that day every minute since it happened, he said, eyes tired. I panicked. I told myself it was fear of getting in the way of your career, but really, he stopped, looked down. I was scared I'd never matter as much as your work. I leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. So you disappeared without a word? On the morning I was supposed to be sworn in. I know, he said quickly. I was a coward. But I've missed you. Every day. I looked at him. Really looked. He wasn't different. Still polished. Still putting all the right words in the right order. But none of it landed the way it used to. You didn't just leave me, I said quietly. You left me in front of my family. In front of everything I had built. He nodded, swallowing hard. I know. And I'm sorry. I thought I could step back and it would somehow protect both of us. But all it did was show me what I walked away from. I felt the words form before I meant to say them. Did you miss me, Marcus? Or did you miss the power I gave you? His face fell. I don't know how to answer that. You just did, I said. Silence stretched between us. The only sound was a gull crying overhead and the soft lap of water against the pilings. He took a small step back, like the air had shifted. You're different. I'm still figuring out what that means, I said. He ran a hand through his hair. Can I see you again? Just to talk. I shook my head. You can leave your apology here. That's enough. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say more, but thought better of it. He turned and walked back toward the gravel lot. I stood there, listening to the sound of his footsteps fade. I didn't cry. I didn't feel hollow. I felt clean. Like a storm had passed through and left the air sharper. He'd come back expecting the girl he abandoned. But I wasn't her anymore. And I wasn't auditioning for that life again. We finished the boat just before sunrise. It was small, a single-seat skiff, low-slung and narrow, shaped for speed and silence. I had spent weeks sanding the hull, sealing every seam, running my hand over the same grain until it felt like part of my skin. Marla helped with the final coat of varnish, 3 layers, golden and glassy, and insisted I paint it something that felt like mine. I chose deep blue, the color of the harbor after midnight, then added a single gold stripe along the trim. For luck, I said. Marla only grunted, but she didn't paint over it. That morning, we wheeled it down the ramp together on an old dolly Rena had fixed up. Marla barked orders the whole way. Watch the rudder, slow over the rocks, don't scratch the hull. But her voice was less sharp than usual. Almost proud. The dock creaked beneath us as we eased the skiff into the water. Moment of truth, I whispered. Marla didn't answer. Just stepped back, arms crossed, watching. I climbed in carefully. The skiff bobbed under my weight, but held steady. I grabbed the oars, hand-carved, crooked in places but mine, and pushed off. The water was still. No wind. The horizon stretched clean and wide in front of me, the sky a pale wash of pink. I paddled slow at first, the oars cutting soft swirls into the bay. Then a little faster. The boat responded, smooth, obedient, almost eager. I didn't go far. Just out enough to feel the current under me, the pull of the water giving way to movement I had made with my own hands. When I looked back, a small crowd had gathered at the edge of the dock. Few locals. A couple curious tourists with cameras. Rena stood behind them, arms folded, her expression unreadable. But I saw the way her chin lifted when I turned the boat. She was proud. She just didn't say it out loud. I docked gently. No splash, no scrape. As I stepped back onto land, one of the tourists clapped. I blushed, brushing sawdust from my jeans. "Are you offering rides?" someone asked. I laughed. "Maybe." Another voice came from behind me. "You should," he said. "People pay good money for experience." I turned. It was Grant, the guy who ran the resort up the coast. He'd stopped by once asking about experiential rentals. I hadn't taken him seriously then. He gestured to the boat. "You built that?" "With a lot of help." He nodded. "It's beautiful. Real work like this. It means something." We stood there for a beat, the crowd thinning. He stepped closer. "If you ever want to talk about partnerships, I'm just down the road." I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either. I just smiled, the morning light catching on the gold trim of the skiff behind me. And for the first time, I felt like I had made something that mattered. Not for a campaign, or for applause, but for myself. Grant came back the next week. He didn't bring a pitch deck or a business plan. Just 2 sandwiches wrapped in butcher paper and a bottle of cold ginger ale. He found me in the marina office, barefoot on a stepladder, trying to caulk a window I'd nearly given up on. "I brought lunch," he said. "And a question." I climbed down, face flushed. "Let me guess. You want me to build you a yacht by next month?" He smiled. "Not quite. I want to know what you'd build if you weren't worried about proving anything." I paused. The truth had been nudging at me for weeks. It wasn't just the boat. It was the whole act of shaping something, slowly, deliberately, and watching it hold. "I want to teach people," I said finally. "Weekend workshops. Come build your own skiff. Not perfect, but real." He didn't blink. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say." That afternoon we sat on overturned paint cans in the back of the marina office, scribbling ideas on the back of old tide charts. He knew people, vendors, seasonal travelers, tourists looking for more than souvenir shops. I knew the tools, the rhythm, the process. We talked about how much space we'd need, what kind of insurance, how to manage materials. "Marla would lose her mind if you brought a tour bus down here," I warned. "Then we won't," he said. "We'll find another spot. Something nearby. Something quiet." We did. An empty warehouse 2 blocks up from the water, dusty and wide with skylights that let in perfect sun. The owner had been trying to rent it for months. Raina came with me to look it over. She didn't say much, just walked the perimeter slowly, boots echoing on the concrete. Then she nodded once and said, "You'll need good locks." That was her way of saying she was in. Marla didn't say yes right away. But one evening, while I was oiling the skiff at her shop, she came over and handed me a thick stack of scrap plans. "Old designs," she said. "Some bad. Some worse. But a few worth dusting off." "You're helping." "I'm consulting," she said sternly. "No tourists in my shop. And I don't explain anything twice. Deal." It took a month to clean out the warehouse, 2 more to set up. Grant helped refinish the floors. Raina negotiated the lease like she was buying a car at gunpoint. I ordered tools in bulk and labeled everything in Sharpie. The first day I unlocked the front door with my name on the lease, my hands didn't shake. No campaign signs. No city permits.
No speeches.
Just a long wooden table, a blueprint on the wall, and a stack of cedar waiting to become something. This time I wasn't building for appearances. I was building home. 6 months later, the workshop was full. Not just with people, though the waitlist for our weekend sessions stretched into next spring, but with noise, sawdust, music from an old radio Raina swore she'd fix by hitting it with a wrench. The space smelled like cedar and lemon oil. My hands were always stained with varnish, my hair perpetually tied back with twine. And I didn't care. The marina office, once hollow and echoing, had become a welcome center. Locals stopped by to peek at our sketches or bring muffins. Tourists wandered in asking if we gave serious lessons or just fun ones. We told them both. Some built boats. Some didn't. But everyone left with something shaped by their own hands. Even if it was just confidence. That night, I stayed late after a session ended. Cleaning brushes, stacking wood, sweeping up the day's mess. I thought I was alone until I noticed someone still at the back table. Grant. He was sanding a narrow plank with slow, steady strokes, the muscles in his arms taut beneath his rolled sleeves. His hair was dusty, his face flushed, but there was a look of deep, quiet focus on him, the kind I recognized. "You're still here?" I asked, wiping my hands. He looked up and smiled. "Didn't notice the time." He set the board aside and leaned against the bench. "There's something about this. The rhythm. The way it slows everything down. I don't think I knew how badly I needed that." I sat on the floor near the dock doors, legs stretched out, and he joined me. We let our feet dangle over the edge, toes just grazing the water. The moon was high, silver, and clean. The skiff I'd built bobbed nearby, tied loosely to a piling. Two more just like it floated beside it. Student boats, imperfect but proud. I reached for his hand, half without thinking. He didn't flinch. We sat like that for a long time. Quiet. Not in the way we had been when we were strangers. This silence felt earned. Comfortable. Real. "You ever think about that day?" I asked, eyes on the skiff. He glanced at me. "The one where your whole life fell apart?" I smiled. "No. The one where I figured out how to make something better." He didn't say anything right away. Just squeezed my hand gently. And in that moment, with my feet in the water and the scent of wood in the air, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Not just peace, but presence. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was just here. And that was enough. The note was folded neatly on my workbench. I almost missed it, tucked between a box of dowels and a half-sanded rudder blade. Just my name in small blocky handwriting.
No flourished, no fanfare.
"Karina, you don't need me anymore. That means I did my job. I read it twice. Then once more. No signature, but she didn't need one. I sat with it for a minute, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Marla had always made her exits the way she did everything, sharp, clean, without explanation. She hadn't come by in a few days, but I figured she was just off on another salvage mission or tucked away in her home on Breakers Point, muttering at the radio and planing old wood into something beautiful. But now I knew she was stepping back. Not out of anger. Not out of habit. She'd done what she came to do, and she trusted me to carry it forward. I didn't cry, but I felt it in my chest, the kind of full ache you get when someone gives you exactly what you didn't know you needed. That afternoon, I opened the big workshop doors and let in the breeze. The smell of salt and sun pushed into the space like an old friend. I set out fresh aprons, straightened the row of hand tools, and waited. At 2 o'clock, a little girl named Maddie arrived with her father, cheeks flushed and eyes wide. She was maybe 10, elbows too sharp for her sleeves, confidence wobbling under her tiny boots. She looked up at me. "Are we really gonna make a boat?" "Piece of one." I smiled. "But you'll shape it yourself." She nodded, all seriousness. "I've never held a chisel before." "Well," I said, pulling one from the rack and crouching beside her. "Then today's a good day to start." I guided her hands, showed her how to angle her wrist so the blade wouldn't catch. She fumbled once, apologized. I told her mistakes are part of the process. Wood doesn't want perfection, just attention. And as she made her first rough cut, I thought of myself months ago, terrified, directionless, gripping that same tool like it might judge me. Now my hands didn't shake. My voice didn't doubt. And when Maddie looked up at me, proud of the jagged knot she'd made, I didn't think about Marcus, or politics, or the version of myself that had needed everyone's approval just to breathe. I thought of the way wood bends when you earn its trust, of Marla's note, of the boats bobbing outside in the harbor, kissed by sunlight, not flashy or perfect, but seaworthy, real. I stood in the workshop I'd built, with cedar in the air, chalk on my jeans, and someone else's future beginning in front of me. And for the first time, I knew I didn't need a title or a podium. I had tools. I had tied. And I had built my own beginning.